Hello and welcome to the Momentum Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Dallin Malm. This podcast features conversations with athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs who use their success and influence to serve a purpose greater than themselves. My guest today is a world-renowned sculptor who was born in New York but lived much of his life in northern Italy. And at the age of 19, he quit his woodworking job. He calls his dad with 25 cents in his pocket and he says, "Dad, I'm going to be an artist." He earned his stripes the old-fashioned way, drawing from life itself, where he studied the human figure obsessively, and he committed himself to a classical standard in this increasingly contemporary world. He wanted to compete with Michelangelo and Raphael and Donatello. With that desire in mind, he graduated from the New York Academy of Art, and he remained there as a professor for roughly 2 decades, all while developing a massive body of work that made him one of the best-known American sculptors of our time. His work was highly sought after for both private collections and even museums, and he earned the affectionate nickname, the American Michelangelo. Then came a defining chapter in his life. In 2016, he was selected from hundreds of entries as the winning bid to create the National World War I Memorial in Washington, D.C. And what followed was 9 intensive years of painstakingly long research processes, design, and sheer physical labor. He went through COVID-19 and labor crises and all sorts of hurdles, and he presented this final piece as a soldier's journey. It features 38 larger-than-life bronze figures across a 60-foot bronze relief, and it sits right now just a stone's throw from the White House itself. His journey now steps into an even bolder realm as he is working on creating a piece triple the size of a soldier's journey and exponentially more difficult. It's a 57-figure monument called the Grand Liberty Arch, which celebrates America's past, present, and future. In our conversation today, we'll dig deep into the origin story of the artist that you see today, learning more about how he was taught to study and refine and master his craft. We'll also speak to the role that faith has played in diverging from these changing cultural norms to be able to accomplish a literal monumental piece. And even how that same faith now drives him to create a once-in-a-generation type of work. A destination-style monument that will stand as one of the greatest symbols of this country. My hope is that you will be enlightened and inspired by this man's great conviction, and also drawn to his simplicity and his humility. Please enjoy my conversation with the American Michelangelo, Sabin Howard.
You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. Victory! Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be. For without victory, there can be no survival.
Well, Sabin, this is awesome having you on. You're really prolific. Like in recent years, you've been on a lot of podcasts and you've shared so much of your story. And you talk a lot about when your career started. You were 19 years old when that big pivot happened in your life. And I want to ask you, what does the voice in your head sound like? If you could compare it to the voice in your head as it spoke to you when you were at the beginning of your career, 19, 20, 21, versus how it talks to you now.
I had this moment, this light bulb moment, kind of a calling. I think it was a moment of clarity because I think as human beings we need purpose. And so there's this sense of searching and searching and searching, and then all of a sudden, like bang, it comes in because you hit this place of like, I can't go on, this is too uncomfortable, we need to do something here. It's a stepping into like a clarity. And so that is maybe my 19-year-old version, and then my 62-year-old version is more like, we need to get the job done. That's it. Just do it. And then it's like an obsession. And I call it a disease, the disease of being an artist. It really is because you're not at ease because you're constantly in this liminal space, which is like you're stepping into a void. And that is a spiritual space because you don't know what's coming, and uncertainty is what you have. So in the beginning, you don't know this because you're uneducated in the experience of being an artist. Now, whatever, 43 years later or something like that, it's like I've been in this liminal space, this spiritual space for so many years, and it's like, it doesn't go away. It's the same stuff on a different floor.
What's interesting about that is a lot of times you hear actually the opposite, where the voice in my head when I was younger was really intense and demanding and harsh on myself. And then later on in life, that voice becomes a lot more wise, and it turns into patience, and it turns into enjoy, and it turns into like relish the moment. It almost sounds a little bit turned on its head for you, where you had kind of that bigger aperture when you were younger, and now your work is focused, it's more serious, it's a real consequence, and so the stakes feel higher. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, well, just like when you do something for a long time, it's incremental, like you're climbing a ladder. There's steps in that development of character and spiritual nature and artistic growth and vocabulary and understanding. So it's a continual growing curve that I've kind of chosen that path, and that path is not necessarily an easy one.
Sure.
It's a little bit like, what's next, God? And you don't really know what's coming, and it's not a fun one. I didn't choose like happiness in my life. I really chose the path of purpose.
It is, I'm willing to accept what you have next for me.
Yeah.
And at whatever cost, whatever it takes.
Yeah, what does it take? And the edge is knowing that I'm not in this alone.
Yeah.
That someone has my back. This huge force has my back.
What I've noticed about studying your life is this passion has to start from somewhere. And when you look back through somebody's life, retrospect is 20/20. You can see little points connecting. And although there's moments before this, one of the bigger points early on in your life is that of when you were 14, you spent a lot of time in Italy. You were back and forth a lot. You were raised there for the first few years of your life, right?
Yeah.
You were 14 years old, standing in front of the Medici tomb, and at those tombs there's the Michelangelo statues. There's night and day. You talk about, well, your wife Tracy wrote about that being like a big turning point for you in your life.
Yeah.
Can you take me back to that day, and what were you feeling, and what was that experience like for you?
You know, my tour guides were my parents. They're both PhDs. They're both academics. And so every summer we would be in Italy with my mom's parents, which were my grandparents. They didn't speak English. And then there was always a week or two that we would have to go visit Western civilization sites that were the heritage of what our civilization is. And we went to the Medici tomb, and I was like, oh God, here we go again, Dad. 14-year-old rebellious kid. Oh, that's so boring. And we walk into the tomb, and I was just kind of blown away. And I think it was the initial kind of the initial catalyst of seeing how powerful art is. How could you not step into the Medici tomb and not be transported to a different consciousness? It has a cupola with light streaming from above, and it hits this incredibly ornate and structural space that's made up of architecture, that's decorated with all this symbolism of death, but incredibly elegant and proportioned in a hierarchical system that mirrors the way divine order has been assembled by God. And I'm looking at the architecture because I was into woodworking back then, and the stonework just blew me away. And then my eyes kind of moved to the figures, and I was like, whoa. And that was the first inkling that I would think I'd like to do something like that.
That's the path that you wanted to pursue at that point. Well, you found your way into woodworking. That lasted about like 2 weeks when you were like 19 years old, right? And well, I'd been doing cabinet making. My bedroom as a high school kid was filled with the furniture I'd made. Cool.
Like dressers and desks and chairs. So I spent most of my time in the woodworking shop and tried to avoid the classroom as much as possible. And so that was like a basis for understanding of building, putting things together three-dimensionally and conceptualizing something and then developing a design and an idea and then making it.
Yeah.
The whole thing is about building things. So I was already like a builder. And then you end up in the Medici tomb and it's like, oh, this is next level building.
Yeah. And when that turning point happened in your life, you're now 19, you have quit your job, your boss refuses to pay you the whole $40 or whatever that he owed you at the time. Wait,
Yeah.
What is it, $2 an hour?
Yeah,
you were working
$2
for at the time?
I actually got a job as the backstory is I moved to Philadelphia and every day I'd get on the PATH train to Newark. After 6 weeks I got laid off because there was a recession and we were restoring antique furniture. And so then I go into Yellow Pages and I got a job in South Philly, like deep in South Philly, and started Monday morning. And by like Thursday, I was like, this is wrong. And it was like I hit the point of like no return. I can't continue on this path that you're wasting your brain. You have to do something here. And so I basically quit my job and I called my dad. I said, I quit. And he goes, what are you going to do? You can't just quit. You need a job. And I said, well, I want to go to art school. And he goes, how long is this going to last? And I hung up. And that was the initial moment that was a flash that, okay, it was a calling, absolutely a calling. And it's not like this trumpets from heaven. It could be as simple as I ended up at the Philadelphia College of Art, and that was the beginning.
When you're going from zero experience, at least in the art world, you could consider the woodworking a type of art in itself. But going from zero to taking it very, very seriously, this is like what you want to pursue with your life. What were the hardest, earliest hurdles to get over for you to learn, or did it come really natural?
There's a correlation. I had been involved in athletics in high school, so I came in at this school in ninth grade, and I weighed 135 pounds, and I really wanted to be on the football team. And so my coach, Roy Samuelson, put me on a training program, which was a weightlifting. And what is weightlifting? It's resistance training.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of worked, this is me, I work very well in something that you return to day after day. It's a system of growth. And resistance training is you push against something, and the more you push, the more comfortable it becomes and the stronger you get. That's life. And so by the end of 10th grade, I was already like close to 190 pounds, and I wasn't fat. It was complete muscle that I had put on, and it was bench pressing, like reps, like I was repping 225 pounds, like 10
Nice.
at 225. And so it's like I started to become this freak already. And I remember being in high school, and I'm in the elevator, and these girls get in the elevator, and I didn't have a lot of clothes, and I had like painter's pants, I had 2 pair of painter's pants, and a gray like sweatshirt that I'd cut the sleeves off, and they kind of looked at me like I was some kind of weirdo, because this is New York City,
Yeah.
and you're like bursting out of your clothes. It's like when you're young, your testosterone's really high, so like you gain muscle really fast.
Uh-huh.
And that became my identity. Okay, I was going to work on myself, and it was the beginning of this path. It's like I'm going to work on myself, and you get into art, and it's like now I'm going to work on my brain, and it's like the struggle was that, really it's like, how do I get to this place? And this place is like the Medici tomb, and here I am. I'm 19, and I'm like, I have no clue that that's like an art of the past. I had no idea that like, deconstructivism, modernism, all this stuff that's tearing down that existed. So it's like this myopic vision to hit this other place. And that's my nature. It's like, do the same thing day after day, get really good at it, and then don't pay attention to what's around you, because the vision's not theirs, the vision is mine. And so my vision is very separate from the reality of what I exist in.
You wouldn't have been in that frame of mind if you hadn't been raised around that, though. That was the basis of your knowledge, was some
Yeah.
of the greatest art in the world.
Yeah, I was born in New York City, and in 3 months we got on an ocean liner and went back to Italy, and I was there till I was 2 or 3 years old. And my grandparents brought me around, and I saw all the piazzas with the monuments in the middle, and we went to the churches. I was baptized in the Cathedral of Torino. So that was like commonplace. And even the architecture of residences, like an apartment building, it's built in the 1880s, and you come into the building, and you might have a giant door with a carved walnut or oak panels on it that's ornate. It's classical in nature, with an arch. So you're entering into a space that's already humanly proportioned to our size. So it's a very human thing. It's not this deconstructivist ugliness that came about later. And then you go, you might go up a staircase that has a light at the very top, and it might be 5 stories, and the elevator shaft is in the very middle of the staircase, and everything's marble. And then you go into the apartment, another big door, and all marble floors. This is not high end. This is the way that Italy was in the 60s and 70s. And it's an adherent that we will take history in the past and we're not going to destroy it. It's like we're going to renovate it. So you would take an apartment and you would modernize it, making it just as elegant as it ever was, but bringing it into the modern era.
Yep.
Whereas the United States is more about destroy, chop off, cut the jugular, let's go forward. There's also positives to that, because then you're like constantly looking into the future, but you're not holding on to the history of the past. So I'm a mixture of visual splendor tradition in Europe, and then coming to the United States in the 60s, Vietnam War, it's like think outside the box, and then everything's all about like anything's possible. All tenets of society and history are off. Create what you want, be yourself, be unique. The vision is like no limits. There are no limits. And that's basically what I am. That's my hard drive.
No, with no respect to where we came from as a people. So when you're in art school, was that your first foray into seeing that? You were like, whoa, wait, I thought it was supposed to be this way, and it's actually not?
I kind of always wanted to be an artist as a teenager, and I looked at it like I kept asking my dad, hey, Dad, I want to learn how to draw. That means that you're learning how to do something within a structure. I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to express myself. It's like, what the hell are you going to express when you're a teenager? I mean, what do you know? It's like you're green. And so it's like that moment when I quit the cabinet making shop and I decide to pick up literally drawing on the right side of the brain that night, and then I start the exercises. That's a moment of like clarity. And drawing, your perception of reality changes because you're using different parts of your brain to perceive your reality. And that was incredible because you move into a whole different space of being. It's now all of a sudden, I'm looking across my living room at, a couch, table, chair, and the book says, okay, draw it using angles and distance, and then just draw exactly what you see. I'm looking at one eye. Perception changes, so the ordinary becomes extraordinary all of a sudden.
And it only gets there because you have a narrow of your focus, and there's a purpose behind it.
The perception changes. So you move into a whole different way of seeing the world. And then I interrupt you, and I just want to say, I went to Philadelphia College of Art. I got an education that does not exist anymore today. Came out of Europe, really. The teacher was Walter Erlbacher. His whole family had been decimated by the Nazis. He was Jewish. He's the only guy who ended up in Brooklyn from Germany. He was a darling at the Whitney Museum. And then one day he decides, I want to make figurative art. It's all over. They kick him out of the Whitney. He starts teaching structure of the figure. I'm in that class. I meet some of his students, Tony Visco, who's doing liturgical art. Harvey Citron's doing art as well. I have 4 classes in the figure, and it's incredibly difficult because I'm learning information on how to deduct what I see in life models and translate it into sculptural terms. It's not like, how do you feel? That's like out. It's not even part of composition. It's like, look, deduce, translate, build.
Yeah, well, you had mentioned this in a different conversation, that people don't really care what you feel or if you're putting yourself into this project. They care about the end result. That's what they're buying.
Yeah.
That's what they're investing in. Erlbacher's an interesting study because you had two distinct mentors in your career. There's Erlbacher, and then there was Carcassonne.
Carcassonne. In Rome.
And we'll talk about Carcassonne in a second, but I want to go back to Erlbacher. This is what your wife Tracy wrote about him. This was her description. She said, "He had no patience for fools or dilettantes. In his mind, art required an artist to be at the same level in his field as a professional athlete has to be in his sport. He meant to weed out the dabblers. Precision was his axiom, and he succeeded." What was it like to study under him day to day?
Erlbacher was, this is old school. So we would sit in, there were maybe 25 of us, and we'd sit in those steel folded chairs in the sculpture room, and he had a paper cup of coffee and a cigarette in his mouth in the classroom. And then he would draw and explain things in his this notebook. And then we would listen and take notes and draw as he's doing that, and then we would go to our modeling stands, and with armatures that were articulated proportionally like the skeleton, and then we had masses that were the body parts, dividing the body up into sections that came out. This is out of like Durer's notebooks, a German Renaissance artist. We're building a figure, and
You're
small.
blocking it out, the pelvic block, the rib
exactly.
block. Yeah.
Skull, rib cage, pelvis, upper leg, lower leg, feet, and same with the arms. And so we're building and thinking about each joint, and what's the articulation at the joint, what's the rotation, what's the abduction, adduction, flexion, extension, inversion, eversion. How many degrees is it? So you analyze the body like this in a very organic way, but it's very architectural. And so that's how I came into the figure. It's very abstract. Mm-hmm. And that abstraction of reality into art form is the basis of Western civilization. Right now we've gone like completely off the deep end, and we're looking at data from photographs and computers as the source. That's not a source. That's already an abstraction into code and numbers. This is an actual abstraction from reality through the human fingerprint, the human mind. Perception of reality is like, look at the model and then now build a little figure that's that big. So Walter would come around, and he treated me more harshly than the other students, I think because he saw the obsession, and he called me a figure freak, not while I was in the room. He said, "You guys are lucky to have Sabin in your classroom because he is obsessed. This is all he thinks about," which is true. At that age, I was like a crazed dog. That's all I thought about. I even went to the bathroom. I had a book on Michelangelo. Every place I had a book that I was looking at the masters. And so he was harder and harsher on me. And I came into the classroom 5 weeks later than the students because I had been in his wife's class in anatomical illustration, and she saw how obsessed I was. And she came to me in the 5th class and said, "Hang out after class, I want to talk to you." I was like, oh boy, okay. So everybody's left the room, and she says, "Listen, Monday," this class was on Friday, her class was on Friday. She said, "Monday you're going to go to Walter's class. And we've decided, Walter and Martha, that you're going to be in Walter's class on Monday. But that's an upper level class, and I'm not that. No, listen, you're just going to be there on Monday. We've done all the registration for you. We're shooting you ahead. But listen, Bubby, shut up. Just listen to me. Walter's got a commission. You're not going to tell anybody. He's not coming back after this year. You need to be in that class." I show up on Monday. I'm flailing by 8th or 9th class. I'm really trying, but I missed already 5 classes. This is like graduate level, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm thrown in the deep end. So then Walter says, "Sabin and Michelle, I want to talk to you after class." And he goes, "If you two don't get to this level, I'm going to ask you to leave this class next semester." So you know what I did? I went home And every night I practiced bending the armature to the correct articulation every night, placing volumes on it. By the 14th week, I was a B+ student, and only one person got an A- above me.
Wow.
Michelle, bye-bye.
Not the same level of commitment.
No, whatever I had to do, you're going to do it, because this is life or death. I want to tell you the first day that I entered into another figure sculpting class, and it was Harvey, and Harvey was late, as usual. Very gruff personality, and it meant so much to me that my hands were shaking. I'd never done this before, but my hands were shaking because I was so scared. I knew how far I had to go.
This was before your experience with Earl Bacher?
Yeah. And so it's an anxiety, a panic attack takes over, and it's like, okay, breathe, let's get through this.
Yeah.
But that's what great athletes do. The fear's there, the anxiety's always there, and then you just witness it, you notice it, and then you go. And
Yeah.
that's the courage to proceed. And so I guess, now I had to write a speech for some presentation this weekend. I realized that my life has been a series of stepping into like this liminal space, this unknown, and you take a step into the void because you've been called to do so, and you have to do it because that's my path.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Kelly has this great maxim that he likes to say, the reward for great work is more work.
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
The more that you do and the better that you get,
Yeah.
the greater the opportunities are, but
Yeah.
the more you're going to be asked to do.
Right.
After painting the Mona Lisa, after sculpting the Pietà, you're not going to be asked to go back to anything smaller or less grand than that.
Up the ante.
Exactly. One thing I love about this is you had talked about you went home and you practiced this, and I don't know if this must have been later on in your life, but you still surround yourself with the standard of work that you want to produce. And I think it was at your home in the Bronx, you had Michelangelo's Final Judgment on your bathroom wall.
Judgment. Yeah.
The Last Judgment on
Yeah.
the bathroom wall. Like that is what you're competing against.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
What a way to raise your vision.
Well, the backstory on that is I win this National World War I competition out of 360 global teams, right? So I think, okay, I hit the lottery. Yeah, you hit the lottery all right. It's like, what happens to lottery winners? They always go down in flames. So I was going down in flames because I had every Washington bureaucrat and
You
lawyer.
had gotten exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, I got exactly what I wanted. It's like
Be careful what you wish for. Is that what the moral of this story is?
Yeah, they're telling me like, oh, you need to put more horses, more barbed wire, more machine guns, more no man's land in your composition for this.
So they're telling you how to
monument.
be an artist.
Yeah, so Washington now all of a sudden has become, art experts, especially sculpture and composition experts. All of a sudden, they know what this monument should be. And I go to my studio shop, had a bathroom in it, and I had a poster of the Last Judgment on it. And I'm in the bathroom, and I turn the lights, and I see the poster, and it's God talking. Goes, do what you know, but it was in Italian, fai quello che sai. And it was like, that poster is all about us meeting our maker, of dying at the moment of judgment, the Last Judgment. That is your last judgment. Mm-hmm. All of humanity is twisted into these pretzels, advancing and receding into space. They're all interconnected. Everyone is in humanity together with others, wrapped around each other. And that was a spark. As soon as I started paying attention to what I knew, my path became clear again. Mm. And so I brought the vision.
Do what you know.
Yeah, and that's my the vision is, it's attached to the great work of Europe and Western civilization, but it is not like archaeological. It's not freaking boring. It's like you take that and you make it contemporary. You got to make something that is going to hit your visitor or your art. They're not art aficionados. They're not paying attention to like the esoterica of Western civilization. They're like regular people that are into pop culture. So make something that will elevate their spirit, and now you've connected them to something that's our heritage is so incredibly rich, and that's what the National World War I Memorial did for me. It put me on a path to make art that has purpose for my country, for everyone, not just a bunch of snobby, esoteric, artists.
Well, that's Erlbacher talking.
Yeah.
Talking through you. It's that standard, but it's that style. You talked about how he was ostracized because he wanted to look more at the figure and more at what really is and the beauty of reality.
Yeah.
And so he sounded kind of intimidating. You had mentioned there was times where he would even blow like cigar smoke in your face.
Yeah, cigarette
like just
smoke.
blatantly right in your face.
Yeah, he would say, "You're a sculptor. Look at this S. This is That's what he would say. Look at this S, and I would be like, "Oh, okay. What I got to do?"
Yeah.
And I wasn't like I was quiet. I didn't say but and make an excuse. I was like quiet because I understood the hierarchy of the classroom. I respected. Okay, he has the information that I want.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with that. I'm going to take it in, so I need to step down.
You see less of that today.
You don't see that today.
It's harder to find for sure.
Yeah.
It's my truth. Well, I'm doing my best. And what I hear you saying is, well, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
It's not.
Before we move on to the World War I and maybe a little bit about your time as a teacher now, I'm curious. Carosone had a different teaching style. You actually went to Italy to learn under him, and you were studying more sculpting from live models and emulating that high Renaissance form of art. And what did Carosone teach you that Erlbacher did not?
It's cultural and societal. Walter ultimately was German and then American, and then up in Brooklyn. And we have a tendency to dissect, United States, dissect and label and separate parts into sections. It's a very German way of thinking. Italians have a way of looking at all the parts and then collecting them into a hierarchical whole. And if you look at the art, art always explains the culture. German Teutonic art is very detail-oriented, and the details don't necessarily fit within the whole proportionally correctly. Italian art is the master in terms of like making a single unified whole with all the parts at their correct importance within the full scale. Paolo taught me to look at the surface as a continuous form, the skin of the body as continuous, so that each of these individual forms and parts within the whole flowed, and they didn't call extra attention to themselves. And so that is also a very spiritual way of seeing the world, where if you are seeing the world as we used to see it prior to World War I, where there is a divine order, a divine design, construction of everything, everything is unified, and the only reason that we see things separately is because of our human perception. So it was an education in how do you turn on and off different forms of perception when you're looking at the model and life and nature to make the art. So then you become more of a actual inventor of, it makes you more creative in the sculpture or the design or the composition, because you know how to look at things differently in front of you so that you can compose them with more life force energy. That's the whole point of making sculpture, to like make something that is like, I don't like Picasso, but let's quote him. Picasso says, to tell the truth, you must tell a lie. So the education that I got gave me the ability to change and shift in and out of different forms of perception to create what I think will be the most dramatic, operatic, visceral sculpture that now will impact basically a freaking moron who's never looked at art before. It's not putting them down, but it's like, art's not part of our world and our culture anymore, and I'm here to change that.
So you have this foundation that is highly technical, where there is excellence in the form, there is excellence in the design, there is an intense pressure to not put forth your best effort, but to actually make something great.
Yeah.
And then you have now coupled that with this idea of, okay, great, we know that you can do something great, but let me show you how to make the whole something beautiful that speaks together. It reminds me of how in the Bible they talk about, it is written that God created man, and then he breathed into that man the breath of life. And it's something that completes the figure. And the breath of life in art is what I like to call, and I know that when you were with Mike Rowe, he said the same thing. He calls it art with a capital A.
Yeah.
And it is true art. It is art with a soul and with a spirit.
Yeah.
And where you work with figurative work, where there's a spirit across a single figure, but as we'll get into in just a minute, your work also has to speak and resonate across multiple figures in different shapes, different people, different genders, different ethnicities, unified in the same purpose.
Universal.
But individual in their own right.
This is a really big point you're making. It's not about Sabin Howard. It never is about Sabin Howard. It's more about Sabin Howard actually tapping into his creator, his maker, because modern art took a really bad turn where God is replaced by the individual ego, and then he becomes the creator of the universe. And that's just fallacious thinking, because we're not creators. We are cut from the cloth of God. You better pay attention to the hierarchy of the system here. I am a conductor of that truth. He's speaking through my hands, my heart, and my head. And so I'm paying attention. And so all these things we've been talking about, unified field of the world, the universe, not separated into, parts, that's all from divine order. That's not, and if I were to look into the separation of stuff, that's way more ego driven. That's like, oh, that's my vision. I'm going to invent a system to translate the universe. No, it's nonsense. And so that what I learned was really going back to a previous way of looking at life and nature in an education that happened in the 80s and the 90s, early 90s. And then that became kind of like the track I'm on. It's a structure, and I can be even more creative.
I mean, was it not Michelangelo that said himself that when he's looking at this block of marble, he says, I chipped away until I found what was inside. He didn't say, I bent this block to my will. That there was something in there that was meant to come out.
Yeah, it speaks.
He is a servant to the work.
Yep.
Kind of how you say, this isn't about Sabin Howard.
Right.
What's interesting now is you're now in the position where you have worked with your mentors, and you work as a teacher. You're a professor for like 20 years.
Yeah.
This is a long time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I actually have not heard you talk much about it publicly, but there's this in the hero's journey, if you were to say, where there's the calling, and then you go out into the wilderness, and then there's like the return to finish the job. We're kind of in the wilderness at this point, where there's development and there's so much that still has yet to happen. And I wanted to take just a quick second to dig into your experience here as a teacher, because you took over a class that had 5 previous professors that did not make it. They didn't make the cut. They were inheriting Professor Gross. I don't know how to pronounce his first name.
Gross,
is it Kaime?
Yeah. Haim Gross.
Haim Gross.
Yeah.
So he retires. 5 teachers follow him.
Yeah.
And they don't make it. You're the 6th to step in. What was your approach to making sure that you were going to do this the right way, or at least last a little bit longer?
Yeah, imagine this. It's like, I think it was 87, so it was 28 maybe. And I've never taught before in my life, and I have 30 students.
Well, it's a good thing you're so good looking.
Oh, thank you. Stop lying. So I get in front of them and I explain to them what I'm going to teach them. And I think they really like that, because I didn't just bring them like, okay, how do you feel about your art? And these were all mostly, was at the new school. I got hired from zero. And I got hired on the interview that I had, and by the slides that I presented, and an explanation of how we were going to teach this to the I guess they were all retirees, really, But I got adopted after 10 minutes. I knew because I explained to them how we were going to look at the figure, and we were going to have this method of working, and it was a system. And it means that you had to really look. That was the beginning of teaching. And I mean, teaching is a very bittersweet thing for me, because going into a school, ultimately I'm an entrepreneur, and I want to change the system on a very large level.
You wanted to do that even when you were 28?
Yeah, I was like already 27, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to change art history. I'm going to be the best figurative sculptor.
It's bold.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like egomaniacal. It was more like I was looking at Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel and his drawings especially, and I was like, that's the goal. And so then I was thinking historically. I wasn't thinking like, who's my contemporary, what are people doing? And that's a very European thing, where you're holding on to the history of your culture. I am American, I am also Italian. Mm-hmm. And I slide into both of those cultures, and I feel incredibly at home. Each culture, like I said in the beginning, gives tremendous things. So being bicultural, I have an advantage over all of my contemporaries, my peers, because I don't see history as something done in the past. I see it as like, oh yeah, that's the form. Look at those guys, and you can learn a tremendous amount on like, how do you work within that circle? And then I look at the Americans, and it's like, there's no other place in the world where we have such like, you know, courage to do the new. And so then it's like, you put those two things together, and it's like, you're basically unstoppable. This country is incredible. You can, I couldn't draw at 19, and then I get to make a national memorial. Now I'm going to make our country's largest monument ever. It's like, that's American.
Well, not to mention, you couldn't even begin to tackle those projects in Italy.
No, forget it.
There's no way.
This you don't have the entrepreneurial spirit. Utah is like, this is an incredible place. It's like, it's not done yet here. This is like so fresh. It's so new. It's got, what's it, 1860s? It's really the beginning here.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a long time. It's like, what are we, that's, what is that, 40 plus 25 plus 100? That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's 165 years. That's a flash. Look at how much space, and how the zeitgeist of Utah and Salt Lake is like, let's build something. Anything's possible. And that's why I ended up here.
You originally, I mean, you're from the East Coast. You were born in New York, raised between New York and Italy, really, studied in New York. Your life is East Coast.
Yeah.
Like, but that was, there's a part of it that as you look back, you have to say like, no, I had to develop that way. Like I really actually needed that. Was it more for a matter of perspective? You need the perspective, or perhaps there was people you needed to meet that changed the trajectory of your life?
You asked me about the teaching. I would say that the 35 years I spent from finishing art school to then, the exit was the World War I Memorial. We moved, believe it or not, across the Hudson River to New Jersey. I thought that was incredible. I could hear birds in the morning when I biked to work. I saw a few more trees. It's like,
the world just opened up.
You have no idea. It's like my studio on Bruckner Boulevard in the South Bronx. I rode to work on my bike every day. And I don't think you can actually understand how ugly and how hostile and stressful that environment is, and you're in it. So it's like, okay, this is normal. So I would leave my studio at 6 to go home, to bike home. So I had to go bike over the 3rd Avenue Bridge, and so you had to walk up these stairs, and it's like you're on a walking path across the bridge, and to get back into Manhattan, because you're in the Bronx. And if you go up the stairs and you're on a walking path, now you're a trapped rat, because somebody can get behind you, somebody can get in front of you.
Yeah.
This happened all the time. I'm like taking my carbon fiber, nice bike, and I'm jumping over the rail into like the highway so I don't get mugged, because there's like somebody shooting up in front of me and there's somebody coming up the stairs because they saw that I walked up the stairs.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's a normal occurrence. It's not even like, oh, okay, I got to jump over the rail again, climb over like a 6-foot like fence with my bike and get in the road and ride. So I took to riding on the highway to get across the bridge, so I didn't have to deal with this kind of criminal behavior. That was normal. Or unloading or loading a truck and then somebody pulls up and they're going to take you out. That's like everyday occurrence.
So Utah's the land of milk and honey.
Yeah, basically, this is like in the 90s.
And when you when you paint that picture of what it was like, still it's amazing to think that this is where that memorial had to be built.
Birthed.
That's where it was born.
It got birthed because I would go to my studio, and we talked about this before, but like all the windows were blacked out. You didn't know what season, what time of day it was. You just got to work, and the focus was like it at maximum, and that would run for 7 or 8 hours. So it's like, the big thing was like make these sculptures before the memorial came. And it was a structure in a road, but all of a sudden, by the time we got to like maybe 2014, I realized the painting, the writing's on the wall. It's like if you don't pay attention, you're going down. And so I entered into a competition. I'd never done public works before. And I went from, being a private artist making stuff in a studio on speculation to now all of a sudden making our country's biggest figurative monument.
That is an interesting leap. Like that is the career, one of the biggest career defining leaps.
Liminal space. What's liminal space? That space before your foot hits the ground and you step off the cliff. And I was used to being in that space. Maybe it's because I was used to the uncomfortableness of being an artist in New York City.
Yeah.
It's very much like you're an outsider. And financially, it's like, what am I making? So I'm making maybe $150,000 a year, $180,000 a year.
Between your own work and then your teaching, right? Because you're doing
teaching
both
is
at the
not
same
much.
time.
I quit teaching like pretty much like I was completely selling artwork, hustling the artwork and making that basically around $15,000 a month. I'm being very honest about all this because you would think, oh, that's a lot of money, but
not in New York.
Not in New York because
No.
you got taxes, and then they take a big chunk out of you, and then child care. Have a young daughter, and Tracy, my wife, is a novelist. So we have 2 artists here in New York City with a dream and a vision. It's like you take a beating.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, you get the project, and it's like, it's an exodus. It's basically, I got out.
You said you saw the writing on the wall. When you put in for this commission, was it, did you see something you were running away from, or were you running towards something?
I think the whole art gallery system began to collapse a while ago, and I saw that because I was selling things, and then I started doing webinars. So you're figuring out ways to meet the challenge of like meeting your monthly nut. Because to make art, you need money so that you can be in the studio and dedicate yourself to making. It takes time. And if you're going to make something at this level, it takes even more time. And luckily with sculpture, you can make, edition sizes in bronze. So you make one sculpture, you can sell, 12 of them. And so that 1 year, that's, there's an intelligence to like, okay, figuring things out in terms of like budgets and numbers and calculations like that. So the whole selling, you're selling to a client. I taught students, had to explain. That was my formation, my formative years to then now go and speak about what I do publicly in terms of the monuments. And so it's been kind of like you get forged like steel because you got put in this compression place. And so I'm always looking at it like there's a crack in the door. How do you get your foot in the door, and how do you make that door open?
Yes.
So that's kind of the challenge. That's the challenge of being an artist, the standing in the unknown. And then as I came out of the project, the World War I Memorial, all of a sudden my faith grew, and it was an extension of my philosophy as making art, and everything in the Renaissance ideal of making a figure at that level is about light. So light had always been like a big thing in the studio. How do you make the light on the model and the figure that you're making so it's so luminous that the thing explodes into space? It's beauty, truth, it's incredible. And so we get into this like next level. It's like, oh, my fabrication system is my faith. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know. And so then now I got pulled to Utah because of it.
How old were you when you won the commission for the World War I Memorial?
2015. So I can't even remember. It was like, what is that, 2015 from now?
Yeah, 10 years. 10
years, I was basically, I think I was 52, 51, 52.
What is the mindset? Help me understand the mindset of somebody looking into a project knowing this is going to take the better part of the next decade. For
Not
you,
a problem.
I mean, for you, it was 9 years.
That's
about.
Because it's like, I'm going to work anyway every day. Oh, wow, I get to make like 38 figures. It's like, fine, it's the path's already solved. That's a big piece of the puzzle. You're already making 38 figures
Yeah,
each
but
one.
people don't think like that, Sabin. Like, can you think, the average, like for me, for example, the longest thing I've done outside of maintain, like my marriage with my wife, it'll be 8 years this May, is serve like a 2-year service mission where that was truly full-time. I was at a service mission for my church, and that's where I've got the shirt and tie and I've got the name tag on for 2 years. And even in those 2 years, I still had a day a week where it was, you call it your P day, your break day, where I go shopping, I do my laundry, I kind of take care of what I need to take care of so I can dedicate the next 6 days to teaching, serving, and learning. But the average person does not do that. So to think in terms, for you, you make it sound like, well, I mean, I was doing it anyway, but that is not the norm.
I didn't know that.
I mean, of course you didn't know that because you're awesome.
Well,
but
thank you.
that is an interesting thing. When you look ahead, when I'm looking down, I see, okay, 9 years of work. I think most people would shrink at that. How would you?
What else am I going to do? What am I going to do? It's like, bottom line is one word, purpose. Doesn't everybody want purpose? I don't want to be like waking up and not knowing what to do. I go on vacation and I'm like, by the second day, I'm like, oh, this is not good. You can ask Charlie. It was like we were like on the 5th year, I think, and I was like, Tracy's like, everybody wants to stop. Everybody wants a break. What's wrong? You're like, I'm not phased. I was like, I wish it was keep going. I wish next month I would start another section. I didn't want to stop, so I made a bigger project. This one's going to be 7.5 years. And well, then, it's like, that'll hook me up for 7.5 years.
One of the differences between the two is this one was a commissioned work, and it had to be approved by a panel from that Commission of Fine Arts. What did you learn about working with a panel, how to sell the vision, and how to actually push something through amidst great resistance? You've talked a lot about
what did I learn? That
tempestuous relationship that there was.
To give more information for your audience, you win a competition. It's a national competition. It's run by Centennial Commission. National World War I Memorial is the prize. You win the prize, and then there's no money. There's a national memorial. Around it is not what you would think. I remember sitting with the landscape organizers on the project, and they're like, so what other projects are you doing? I was like, I'm not doing any other projects. So I got all my eggs in this basket. We're going to do the National World War I Memorial sculpture. And they were like, well, that's dangerous. And I was scratching my head. I was like...
See, but that makes sense to me. What you're saying is like, well...
What else am I going to do?
Wouldn't you be worried if I was doing something else? Wouldn't that almost be a red flag? Like, I'm not taking this seriously?
I took it super seriously, and I think I shocked the hell out of the Centennial Commission because they were like, this guy's got opinions. He's not the in-house sculptor. What did I learn? It's like, if you don't get ahead of the pea shooter, somebody else is going to, and then you're going to be shot down. And so it's like, I set up the composition. Through my presentations to Centennial, we did 25 iterations. So they said, well, we'll tell you when we know that it's right. I was like, okay, great. So we went through 9 months. I made 25 iterations.
This is all just sketched.
Yeah, sketch,
on like
photograph.
a panoramic to show them.
Right, and photographs. And like now I really welcome what I went through because I went to next level. It's like instead of doing like this classical esoteric stuff that's frankly boring for most people, I got educated and went next level, and now I'm making figures that are like super dynamic, like superheroes, like exploding off the screen on a movie set. Very visceral. And let me get this straight with you guys. Movement equals emotion. So then how do you make a panoramic tableau, a relief, a wall, with this many figures that tells a story that runs the gamut with all our emotions as human beings? That's a lot of complexity there. And so I do this for 9 months, and then the guy Edwin finally goes, we're sitting at a Barnes & Noble bookstore at Union Square, and he goes, okay, you can finally draw this. Let's pull this forward. I think we got something. He wasn't sure. It wasn't like a big pat on the back, like, whoa, you made something great. And I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to start drawing. Then I had to draw the drawing for presentation. And you got to go to the next level. It's Commission of Fine Arts.
It's got to look really good.
Yeah. You imagine, like, I don't know. I always keep going back to Michael Jordan. He makes the team. It's like no complacency.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Whatever happens, no matter how crummy you're feeling in the morning, show up, do the work, max it out, go as full on as you can. That's my nature. You don't get a second chance. Eminem says there's no option but success. Mm-hmm. That is the only option. That's kind of like the way I saw it. I see the light. I'm going to escape the orbit of New York City. And I did. I got to Jersey. Whoa!
What was it about that final sketch that spoke to the panel? And I think there was a little bit of outside help in actually pushing this through, because it seemed like they were stonewalling you for a while, requesting changes or just putting up all these barriers, right?
Commission of Fine Arts, when I went to them. Okay, so the Commission of Fine Arts is made up of 7 members, and they are appointed by the president. And so these were all appointed by Obama, and they were mostly landscape architects, and the park that had been designated for the National World War I Memorial it has to go through Congress, mm-hmm. Legislation is written, goes to the president's desk, he signs off on it, boom. Okay, now you guys, Centennial Commission, have 5 years to accomplish this task, run a competition. Okay, I win that competition, and now you got to go through agency approval. Oh boy, those people don't really want to see me in the room because I'm doing figurative art. And this is a whole, like, rabbit hole if we go down it. The figure is more than just the figure. Okay, so why did the figure end in the art world? Because it's not appropriate, that's not my words, it's not appropriate to the philosophy of the day. The philosophy of the day, up to the 1880s, is all about divine order, and so then a figure is a representation of God ultimately, because we're made all in the image of God and the cloth of God.
Yes.
So that's a figure. And if you do the figure the way that I was taught, which came out of Western civilization, which is really showing the secrets below the surface, the structure, the skeleton, and how the muscles spin around the body like a DNA helix, you're dealing now with spiritual matter and thought, because you're not just doing a photograph, you're doing something that is a massive translation of reality. And you're opening a door into, like, the sacredness, belonging to something way bigger than yourself. That's the definition of the sacred. So, okay, that's like out the door, and you got this new thing called abstract art. Where does abstract art really come from? It's out of France, Picasso, the Cubists, and they're looking at, like, let's chop Western civilization. Let's slash to jugular. We're going to kill it. Where do they end up? They go to Africa, and Picasso's looking at African masks. And so he's throwing out all the tradition of Europe and taking on the tribalism of these African masks and saying, wow, look at how vibrant this is. Look at how important this is to the African culture. He's right, to the African culture. So he's taking that and he's using it to make his art. That's his but it has nothing to do with European culture and the 2,000 years that they've been living. It's like, let's go over there. And now all of a sudden you're throwing, what happens if you throw that out? You're also throwing out the issue of God. A hierarchy of the whole, unity, all that stuff. And you're moving into a very different paradigm. It's a paradigm shift. Why does that paradigm shift happen? Well, 22 million people die in World War I. Why would there be a God if 22 million people get decimated, families ruined, generational? It's not just like, 22 million people died. No, you destroyed the fabric of Europe and Western civilization, and now you're starting completely fresh. The U.S. adopts abstract art because they want to break away from Europe and they want to be making a culture to art that identifies the United States as a separate entity from the past. We're not very good at maintaining history and playing it forward. That's what happened at that moment. And so then all of a sudden, the art world has now gone completely towards abstract, no God, driven by artists' ego. They invent the form and the way abstract art is, and it's like you're getting rid of story, you're getting rid of objective truths, objective values, light, and now you're delving into a completely different aesthetic, an aesthetic of anti-past, anti-history. And so let's adopt this new thing, ugliness, and make it something important. And I'm like, I grew up in Europe and I had no idea this was going on. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that I would face that in the Commission of Fine Arts. They didn't want to see a figure because it speaks of the past, Western civilization and God and objective values. They wanted to see landscape, gardening, waterfalls, benches, trees, because that's what their holy grail was.
So they weren't expecting some grand monument.
No.
That would be a destination thing, more of a decorative piece that accentuates the beauty of this.
What is?
Well, the park itself was a dump.
Right.
It was a massive renovation
right.
to get that place back up to par.
What are the big monuments we've seen come up in the last 15, 20 years? It's like World Trade Center, right? What is that? A pit? It's a pit with water cascading down. Where's the human scale?
What about that Eisenhower Memorial that's on the side of the building?
Yeah, with the golf chain link fence?
Yeah,
it's hideous.
I mean, it's not art in the sense that you and I are talking about art. It's almost, what you're saying reminds me of what Nietzsche said when he said God is dead, and he's not saying as an atheist proclaiming like there is no God. He's saying, no, God is dead because we have killed him.
Yeah.
We have not allowed him to prevail.
Right.
And when you cannot let God prevail, you are not entitled to his blessings. You are cutting yourself off from that support that you need. So you bring this to them. You get this approved, though. At the end of the day, they actually approved your design.
Well, they approved it because something happened in the back room, and I'm not going to talk about it. But that's what happened.
But it goes through finally. And let me ask you this. You've talked a little bit about these other memorials, but what else were you wanting to avoid in this memorial? Was there anything specifically you're like, no, I've definitely got to keep this out of the memorial? One thing I might point out is you talked about the 22 million lives lost in World War I. There's not much death in the memorial. There's
one.
There is
Cost
one.
of war section.
There is one.
Okay, so Edwin, who was part of Centennial Commission, did not want to see a lot of, and he has a point. He was correct, and I'm grateful to him because we made a very powerful statement with the shell-shocked figure as becoming the unique figure that represents this change from divine order to no God, following the existentialists, and that's that line in the sand from World War I.
Yes.
That shell-shocked figure coming directly out at you is not interacting with any of the other figures.
Yes.
It's separate. It's in turmoil. He's frozen in space. And it is a WTF moment of like confusion. And that confusion is still running rampant on the East Coast. Because what has replaced God is like not at the level of God. It's finances, it's real estate, and it's the state, it's the government, it's politics.
It's a question worth asking. It's the question you pose. It's a question that I've heard Jordan Peterson pose is, well, if you want to tear down these monuments or if you want to change culture, what do you plan on replacing it with?
That's exactly destruction.
It better? Is it better?
That has not been thought through, because if you destroy something that is our very lifeblood, I didn't really realize that till the last 5 years, that the whole concept of being made by, I mean, come on, if you look at how complex the human body is and how many systems are operating in unison to create a single human being, it's incredible how all these cells, there's so many cells that manifest what their function and reason for being is within the body. I mean, we're very complex mechanisms. I do not feel medicine has a clear picture of how complex we are. That is well beyond anything we could even imagine. You don't need to use the word God, but something larger than us has created this universe. And we can never duplicate it. And that's the way I came into the system. And then all of a sudden, all these things that I had not really named, that were just I was looking at the philosophy and the medicine and the science, start to merge into concept of like the spiritual on a next level, which is for me Christ.
Yes. Well, this is the Erlbacher and the Carosoni.
They were atheists, though.
But what's interesting is but they taught you an eternal principle.
Yes.
It matters to be excellent in the craft. That genuinely matters. And then only when you have that foundation can you elevate it to a higher level by looking at the system as a whole and looking at one fluid form that's cohesive yet individualistic at the same time. And that's what you're saying. That's what the greatest art is creating. What's interesting, one of the problems that you talked about was, so this is a long project. It's intense. You made it through COVID. There's just all this stuff, even after the friction of getting through the commission and the committees and all of that. You have models, you have sculptors working with you that leave partway through. Some closer to the beginning, and some just about at the finish line. They just leave. What would you say? What would you say to somebody who has yet to experience working with like a true professional and living under that intensity? How should they understand that? Because you've made it clear that you might not be the easiest person to work with if you're not bought into the vision. So you got to be ready for the fire.
Thank you. Not bought into the vision. You just answered it. It's the vision that leads. So this is the mistake that I think a lot of the people that fell off the wagon didn't have. The vision was not about the studio or Sabin. The vision was larger than the studio or Sabin. And I kept saying to everybody there, guys, 5,000 people a day are going to come see this piece. We have a moment here that we can change the world for the better. And what is your major malfunction? Why can't you see? Didn't your mom teach you that you're supposed to leave the world in a better place than when you came in it? So that's what I got pounded into me as a kid, that you need to do something that leaves the world better than when you were born, which means that you need a purpose, you need dharma, you need to have a function. Is that the way we operate today as human beings? And so whatever I did, my job was be a leader. And what am I supposed to do? Make sure that the ball gets to the end zone. Okay, you don't see the vision, you're not on the team, I'm going to boot you out the door. Now, if this happened again to me, I wouldn't be screaming and yelling and showing any emotion. I'd be like, all right, we're done, sorry, today's your last day. Mm-hmm. But because I had to grow into becoming a leader.
Yeah. You
being a leader, not everybody's going to like you.
Of course. Of course. It can't be, almost by definition.
There's something larger than me. It's the vision. It's because I got tasked with making a monument that represents our country. And if I screwed it up and I made something mediocre, I failed. Because this country is so incredibly, it's just, the opportunity here is beyond anything that I'm speechless to talk about how, like, I want to make just another monument. It's like, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Where else would that happen? Mm-hmm. Where I can say, hey, this is going to happen. I'm just going to, like, keep going. What's going to stop you is my own mind, my brain. Nobody else is going to stop you. It's like when I fall off, but I don't fall off anymore. I got used to this.
That intensity is what I think a lot of people lack. Because I agree with you with the methodology. If you're, like, we are in this thing. It is truly a ride or die kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not bought into the vision, if it turns into pursuing a selfish interest, or if for whatever reason you can't do this,
individual selfish interests,
then you can't be here.
It wasn't about me. It was being in service of.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest takeaway that I learned from the memorial. Be in service of.
It reminded me of Michael Jordan. I actually wrote down his quote because we've talked about how there's just a demand for excellence. There is a price to pay for greatness, and that price to pay is just, it's actually easier to pay when you're in the service of something better than yourself, I think. And this is what Michael Jordan said on that. When you had talked about this originally, and when I had seen clips of that happening, just these moments of intensity and moments of reckoning, I went and I watched episode 7 of The Last Dance of Michael Jordan's documentary. You've got to watch it, Sabin. So this is just, it's almost, this could come out of your mouth, but this is what he said about his intense drive. He said, "My mentality was to go out and win at any cost. If you don't want to live that regimented mentality, then you don't need to be alongside of me, because I'm going to ridicule you until you get on the same level with me. And if you don't get on the same level, then it's going to be hard for you. Winning has a price, and leadership has a price."
Yeah.
So what if I pulled people along when they didn't want to be pulled, or I challenged people when they didn't want to be challenged? Once you joined the team, you lived at a certain standard. He said, "I may have been a tyrant." Well, that's actually on you, because you never wanted anything the way I wanted it. I don't have to do this. I'm only doing it this way because it's who I am and it's how I played the game. If you don't want to play that way, don't play that way.
Yeah.
So Sabin, how do you find people that want to play that way?
I think in Utah it's different.
How so?
Community is much stronger here. Maybe individualism is a little weaker, but working in teams and community is meeting people, and the philosophy that the form, the art, tells that story is in sync with the settlers that came here in the 1860s. It's larger than them.
Yeah.
You're on a voyage here, and that voyage is to become closer to light, so you're prepared when you go back and meet your Maker. And so you got a gift, the gift of God-given life, put it to good use. That's the basic premise of the community here in Salt Lake City. Or
yeah.
In general, you get a lot of outsiders.
Sure.
But that is the
It's
the
been
rod.
like a magnet, though, for that
Yeah,
like-minded
excellence.
kind of people.
And people like, in Salt Lake, they like people that are competent at what they do. Incompetence is frowned upon. Basically, you don't get paid.
Yeah, yeah.
And you get fired.
Sure.
But competence in New York is not necessarily a given. So it's kind of like, well, what's in it for me? And that's a horrible way to come to the table.
You remember in the 1860s, during the Civil War, after the war, they changed the words in the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
I didn't know this. Tell me.
It used to say in the third verse, I believe, or it could be the fourth verse, it says, "In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea with a rapture in his bosom that encaptures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. That's what the original song said. As he died, we should die to make men free. After the Civil War, after the carnage and the destruction and the insane amount of life lost, for the purpose of freeing our brothers and our sisters, the word was changed. And they said, as he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free. And that is a key turning point, because also at that same time, the saints, the settlers, the pioneers had come across the Midwest, and they had settled Utah, which at the time was outside of the country. They had literally left the country.
Right.
They had left the United States of America. And you may not know this, Sabin, but you ought to just read the words of the hymn that they sung, Come, Come Ye Saints, where they talk about no toil nor labor fear, but with joy. Like, we're going to go forward. They're singing this song as they had taken their family. They had been run out of Ohio. They had been run out of Illinois, and their temple burned to the ground, and people killed and rape and destruction. And they had ran to Missouri, where the governor had signed an extermination order. Like, it is legal to kill Mormons. That's crazy. Like, you don't think about that in the United States, but that happened. And so then where were they forced to go? Their prophet Joseph Smith was martyred. And so under the leadership of Brigham Young, they take everything they have and they put it into wagons. Many of them die, and they're singing, all is well, all is well. And the last verse is so important, and this is what you have identified here in Utah. They say, the first few verses are, Come, come ye saints, no toil nor labor fear, but with joy we shall dwell. And in the last verse it says, but if we die before this journey's through, happy day, all is well. It says, we then are free from toil and sorrow too, and with the saints we shall dwell. But if our lives are spared again, to see the saints their rest obtain in this new land of Utah, then how we will make this chorus swell, all is well.
Yeah.
And that to me is the message of truth.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to believe that. But your monument captures that, Sabin. You referenced this starts with a child, it ends with a child, who your daughter was the model for that. And you said this is not a memorial about war, it is a memorial about healing.
That's right.
Can you speak more to that?
I'm going to take what you said in the last few minutes and make it very succinct with my favorite statement. It's called Rise to the Occasion. And the first and the last figure are my daughter. And what is my daughter? She is future generation, my future generation, and in the memorial, the future generation of what happened in World War II. So the innocence of her when I sculpted her face. Actually, we had just gotten out of New York. We moved over to Englewood because of COVID, because we didn't want to get blocked at the bridge.
Over to the New Jersey side. Yeah,
by the memorial. And so I would sculpt her on Saturdays and Sundays. So I worked 7 days a week. It was, she couldn't handle more than 3 to 4 hours. She was a little kid. She was close to 12, almost 13. And then at the end, she's like 18. It's a huge gap, and she's, whole different body, whole different demeanor and face, and it's like, why would you make a memorial? Memorials are made to redefine us. Historically, when we've been in places of trouble in our country, what do? We built memorials, the Grant Memorial, Iwo Jima Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial. These are all memorials that redefine who we are historically. And you make something not only for the moment to fix and redefine that moment, but you to redefine history moving into the future.
Yes.
Because it's like, here's the whole concept. Let's go back to the unity in the string idea. It's like your DNA as a human being is not an isolated moment. you come from your parents and they come from a long lineage, that DNA is playing forward, and you're supposed to play that DNA forward to the future. And as you are alive, you are a steward of your DNA. You are a steward of your body and taking care of it. You're supposed to like be good to your DNA, and that's what the analogy is art and life are interconnected. So you're supposed to do the same thing with history. You're not supposed to do what the modernists did and slash the jugular and forget about everything that came in front of behind you. So you can play forward and be on that string, which is unified into the future. So people's lives, families, and history, which are stories about those people's lives and those families, and ultimately communities and states and nations, are to be played forward, not destroyed and reinvented. Yes, you can be thinking of it in terms of let's do something new, but not in a destructive way. And you don't want to be archaeological as well. So I chose something that everybody would get. And I think, okay, it's called The Soldier's Journey. What does a soldier do? He leaves home. I think that from the veterans that I spoke to, that's one of the hardest things they had to deal with, was like, I got to leave my wife, girlfriend, and kids. And then I got to go do this thing, and then I got to come back, and I'm going to be completely different and messed up. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to show that. The dad comes back and hands his helmet to his daughter, and that helmet's now open. What's the first scene? The helmet's closed. Hasn't been opened. Pandora's box, the war to end all wars, is the war that was the kicker for wars that have never ended. And I think that was, to me, I didn't even realize how deep that would be for the veterans that would come. It just hit them right in the chest.
Of course. Part of that power that comes from it is the same concept of an Ebenezer. Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah.
And in Samuel, are you familiar with the term of why that was erected on the field of battle?
Tell me about it.
So in the Old Testament, in the book of 1 Samuel, when the Israelites and the Philistines were at war, the same war that's going on today between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and these people, their progenitors, were at war. And the war was not going very well for Israel at the time. In fact, they believed they were going to go all in and say, we have the ark, we're going to put this ark into battle, and we are going to come out triumphant. So they meet the Philistines on the field of battle, and the Philistines not only beat them, but they take their ark. so they run away with the treasure, so to say, and they actually ended up giving it back because they had met everywhere that ark went, just destruction reigned, and they ended up just giving it back to the Israelites, like, we don't want this anymore. But it was obvious that was not going to save them on the field of battle. And they went to the prophet and they said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And he says, guys, you need to pray and you need to come to God. He will fight this battle for you, but you have forgotten him. They do that. They repent, they turn to God, they let him prevail in their lives again, and it is an absolute just destruction over the Philistine army. Yeah. There was a great storm, and there was a loud noise, and they were all confused and discombobulated, and they just got absolutely demolished. On that field of battle, Samuel erected what he calls an Ebenezer, or a stone of remembrance, on that field of battle as a memorial or as a monument. And an Ebenezer means, it is in reference to, without divine help, we would not have accomplished this thing.
Yeah.
Another word that's common, and as a lot of Christians sing, "Come Thou Fount," it is, "Here I raise mine Ebenezer, hither by thine help I've come." The sine qua non, without which it could not be, was God's hand.
Yeah.
And those veterans looking at the memorial, probably feel that as well. Where that's why it's
healing.
This is a story. This is why it's healing. Well, without God's hand, this would not have been the outcome of this story.
Yeah, it goes back to unity too, because when you look at the bronze monument and you're on the sacred space, everybody comes to it with reverence, and all of a sudden it's like this catharsis, especially for the people that have lost physical and mental abilities, And they come back and they see that and they get recognized, and all of a sudden you've made something that brings community together. They get recognition that nowhere else on the planet is there a story that actually is their story. The combatant story of leaving home. And I don't think people realized how difficult it is and then how wounded they are when they come back, because the reentry into society is not basic training. Basic training's like to get them jacked up and be ready to go become a killing machine as a unit, stripped of their humanity. Reentry is not thought about. And one of the veterans of the project, Ricky, who is the shell-shocked body, the hero who looks back under the flag, it's his head and body as well, and the flag bearer's body, that's Ricky Zambrano. He went through that when he came back. So I started working with the veterans. Mm-hmm. He committed suicide, and then there was a moment when he had taken all these pills that the VA gave him to numb him. That night, he's lying in his bed, and something lifted him up, and he went to the bathroom to puke him up in the toilet. And it was a moment that, if you look at it, that moment is like he stopped feeling alone. He said to me, I realized at that moment that nobody was coming to save me, that what was going to save me was already within me. And what was within him was the light and truth, which is basically a universal value of God. So what happened is he turned away from modernity and came back to the reference of like, somebody's got my back, which is his maker. And he's the model for the shell-shocked figure, which is the most alienated figure on the whole wall, that speaks of the moment that we forsake the divine. And so I didn't know I was doing this. I picked somebody to be the model for that project being that shell-shocked figure. Mm-hmm. And it's like he walks away from the nihilism from Sartre, Camus, and Nietzsche, and accepts being within the community of the universe, the unity of everything. And so that's an incredible thing that I didn't know I did that. All these things, it's like I'm still learning from it. I didn't know all this stuff.
Yeah. Is that part of what you were referencing?
Yeah.
When you presented this monument, there was a candlelight vigil, and the audience there, you said, I stand before you a changed man.
Yes.
That's what you were referring to.
Exactly.
In what other ways were you changed?
That's the biggest way, the only way, and then everything else is secondary to it, because I understood my task, and I understood the very concept of being in service. Just that. Keep it simple. I'm in service of something way bigger than myself.
Yes.
And that changes your whole purpose as an artist. You're not just making art. Now you're making art for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be irresponsible.
Healing, and we go back to the healing.
Yes. Yes, which was the message of the monument.
Yeah, and what is Christ is all about. What is he about? Healing.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Right. So what are we going towards? Light, truth. So that's why now I'm a formidable foe, because if you tell me that, oh, what you're doing is like not right, it's like I got plenty to respond. Not in words, but I'll show you in the next monument.
Of course. Well, and the piece stands for itself. There's power.
Yeah.
Well, I was there just this weekend.
It is. It's energy that comes off that wall.
Yes, of course. I mean, I spent 2 hours in front of that memorial, mesmerized and feeling and thinking. And in the space of time that I was there was a group of patriots there, and they laid wreaths in honor of the World War I veterans. They said a prayer. They had a small little ceremony that was really respectful and reverent, and they were not there to worship the monument. They were there to worship the God that had made that so, and the truth and the light that it points to.
Yeah.
I think, Sabin, it would be probably irresponsible for me to not ask about Tracy in this, because she is indispensable in this work. She's your wife. She was your business partner. She was the scheduler. She was the barrier to entry. She fought on your behalf, and she protected you, and
she
she was the wall that encompassed this and helped protect
Yeah.
and provide. And will you speak to Tracy's role and
Well,
what the scope was and what that meant
I
for
think
the project?
the project had the effect in the beginning where it's like we were still living in the paradigm of New York City, where it's like you do your thing, I do my thing, then we come home at night and we reconnect. And then obviously that didn't work because this was an obsessive task. Ultimately, you are going to do something that requires you 24/7. So we fell apart, and then that was the end of marriage 1.0, and we moved into marriage 2.0, which was like we are now a team. Till death do us part. The partnership goes well beyond just a marriage. It's like without one of us, we cannot do the task that was necessary. So she is equally responsible for the memorial as I, because when you run a multi-million-dollar business, you got a lot of moving parts, and you got a lot of like things that you got to interface with on the business side. And so her sacrifice will forever be like honored by her husband, moi, because I can't do it without her. She knows me more than anybody else, and she took the beating, the brunt of the beating from outsiders, commissions wanting to come in, laying down the law. Yeah, you can come in once a month, but that's it. We'll give you a report. It's not necessary. It's a wall, because I got used to people coming in and I could keep working, turn it on, turn it off. But commission comes in, you waste a day, and a tight schedule like that, you've fallen back.
Yeah.
And so it was very hard for her, and it just changed everything. It's like, it's the respect and honor that I have for my wife.
Yeah.
And the words, till death do us part, are not taken lightly. Unlike the land that I came from, the East Coast, probably one of the highest divorce rates in the country, because individualism and whatever I want, the ego-driven, not being in service of, is the law. And so you have a lot of selfishness that extends to your family.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is not that sense of, I got your back, you got my back. It's replaced by, how's my career doing?
Yeah.
And that's it's just evil. It's just evil, because the family is the family is one of the most important things that we have as human beings. Mm-hmm. We are not meant to be separate entities. Our children, our parents, our grandchildren, unfortunately I don't have a connection with my parents because we diverge so drastically in our ideology. I'm not an atheist. Mm-hmm. And my values come from objective truths. And I'm not okay with the concept of pluralism where I'm okay, you're okay, yeah, sure. No, I have values. So it's like if you have a religion, a spiritual connection with God, you are less tolerant of people that are like not doing the right thing in terms of righteousness. There is definitely doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. An absolute truth.
There are, yeah, exactly. So you have values and absolute truths, like you said. So I will protect those from my perspective and from what I do as a professional. So I have less tolerance for other ways of being, because not everything is okay. There is evil in this world. Mm-hmm. So I people say, yeah, I'm okay, you're okay, everybody's okay. No, I'm not. I'm not okay with like nonsense and rubbish and actually, okay, let me give you an example. The truth is that as human beings, we're like plants. We always need to move towards the light. What happens when somebody gets thrown into jail? Either they move towards darkness or they move towards the light. Even in that cell, Now that could be a physical thing, right, in the yard, but it can also be a mental thing where you move towards light, and that's the connection with God. You move towards that which is larger than you, that is sacred, and that empowers you to get through the darkness.
Yes.
And that is what I didn't realize till I got out of this last memorial project and proceeded with the next level of my life.
And the next level of your life is called the Grand Liberty Arch.
Glam.
The grand.
Yeah, but glam for short.
Glam, got it. What's interesting about this is there's no commission. There's no contest.
No.
There's no putting in for this and having to work through the same system. What's unique, Sabin, is this was put into your mind and it was put into your heart, and you told yourself, I'm going to do this. The question is, where am I going to do it, and who's going to support me? Who's going to help me back this thing? Well, first off, we ought to just talk about that. What is the difference between, so we got the 2 points in your life where you took a step into the unknown and you put in for this project and you won, and the reward for your great work was even more work. You've now finished the World War I Memorial, A Soldier's Journey, and you again are taking a similar leap in principle, but this time it's for something that you want to pursue, that nobody's putting ahead of you. In your mind, what has been the difference between those two leaps with how you're viewing the opportunity and how you're approaching each of them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's another growth curve. It's you finish another project 9.5 years, and then we're in. We moved out of Jersey and we're up in Connecticut, in the Connecticut woods, property of 22 acres, middle of the woods, really middle of the woods, top of a mini mountain. Finished project, and it's like, now what? You're basically traveling in a car going 110 miles an hour, and the car stops, project stops.
Yeah.
And you slam into the windshield, and it's like a wake-up moment. Because I was like, okay, I did this project, and now everybody's going to come over to me and go, hey, would you do this project or that project? And that didn't happen. And so it was like...
was that a surprise to you?
Yeah, it was a big surprise, and it was another lesson in, like, nothing is ever owed to you. You need to earn it. And so...
And let's be clear, at the time, you were well established in your career, successful and reputable in your own right before this monument. You build this monument, the first of its kind. It's a tremendous success. You did it on time, on budget, which none of us have ever heard in working with even just a general contractor.
Yeah.
And still, the attitude is, I have to earn it.
Yeah, but I didn't get there right away. It was like a wake-up call. So I need to earn it. And then it's like, what do you do next? And it's like, nobody's coming up with another big project like that. So I'm sitting there in the woods, and it's like dark, and in February, and Connecticut's harsh. It snows and it's ice, and it's 11 degrees a lot. And it's gray. And you got to get in that space inside. It's like, what's next? So I started asking, what's next? And it comes to me that, all right, somebody suggests it, and I said, all right, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do something really big like what you just did. And it just developed, and it was like, then, okay, we're not going to build that here on the East Coast. And so I go to Texas, and I go to Fort Worth, and I meet with Maddie Parker, the mayor of Fort Worth, and 4 of the museum directors put this dinner together, and they asked me to pitch the concept of the Grand Liberty Arch, and it went really badly, because it's like I am presenting this idea of George Washington stepping into this place of the unknown. It's like, this is what I know. George Washington steps into the unknown, not knowing if he's going to break away from England, but with great faith. It's like, yes, his foot hasn't hit the ground. We don't have a country. We don't even have a flag yet. And all these men, and it's winter, and he's crossing the Delaware, and it's like, isn't that a courageous moment? And I'm like thinking, wow, that's kind of like what you do. You kind of step into the unknown, and you act of faith. You step into this void, and your foot hasn't hit the ground yet, and that space is the spiritual growth. And I'm sure that that's what was going on in the country back then. And then I began to realize, like, whoa, this is something that's very dear and close to my own heart. I am an artist, and I'm not going to follow anybody's advice, and it's all about liberty, having the liberty to make and create and build things with the vision that has happened in my own mind. What is that vision? My vision is different than the country's founding fathers, but it's in the same vein. And eventually, I turned my eyes because Mike Lee, who was the senator, had sat next to Tracy and I at the unveiling. Mm-hmm. And he calls, we have a scheduled call on a Sunday in November in Connecticut at our dining room table. And he's like, you guys really need to go look at Utah and Salt Lake. And I ask all these questions and hang up the phone, and I get on the computer afterwards, and I've been looking at YouTube videos of realtors and people that speak well of Salt Lake City, and I met this guy, Scott Steele. He's a realtor, and I call Scott. Scott is very open, and Scott's LDS, and he's like, I have this immediate connection with him. In service of, that's what the connection was now. And Charlie and I got on a plane. About 10 days later, we go to meet Scott, get off the plane. It's the only person I know in Utah, and we get in a tour of Utah. And we end up in Temple Square, and I am struck by the sacredness of the space. It reminded me of Rome.
Yeah.
And I called Tracy, and I said, Tracy, this is the place. I didn't know. I had no idea that that's what Brigham Young had said. This is the place.
Yeah.
And come out, get in a Sprinter van on March 11th, act of faith, we're going to build this monument. And I know one person. But, I mean, I had God. It's commissioned by God. It's not commissioning body. It's the maker's commission.
Yeah.
So it can't fail. Period. It cannot fail.
Yeah. You've spoken with a lot of people about this, a lot of influential people, up to and including the governor, Governor Cox. Can you tell me about that conversation with him, what that was like?
I arrived on March 14th, 3 days of driving across Wyoming. We hit a storm. We didn't stop.
Oh, man.
That was pretty cool.
You figured God wasn't going to take you then, so you might as well just keep driving.
I'm going. And 10 days in, I have the first meeting, and I meet Scott Anderson, former president and CEO of Zion's Bank, and everybody's telling me, hey, that's the guy to make things happen. He is the one who's responsible for a lot of the infrastructure of this area. And Scott, I guess I can call him, I ultimately became a partner on making this go forward, and September came around and I have a meeting with the governor in person up at the Capitol Hill, and we sit for an hour together, and I shared a project with him, and he said, I prayed for a project like this.
The governor said that?
Yeah, Governor Cox, Spencer Cox, the governor, said, I prayed for a project like this, and you came. We're going to do this. This is exactly what I envisioned, and frankly, the space up at the Capitol feels empty without this. And we have the Olympics coming in '34. We have the 250th coming. And since then, I've met other very notable public figures. And on December 16th of last year, Governor Cox came and publicly announced that, yes, this has to happen. And I'm going to Capitol Preservation Board, the executive director, Dana Jones, on the 16th to explain the project. We're going to put this up at Capitol Hill because God said so. Not because I did, because God said so.
What was the disagreement that made this a no-go in Texas? Was it the scope, or was it the message? Was it an ego thing? I'm curious.
I'll say
Texas would be kind of on my mind as well.
As politely as possible, their idea of history and the past is not built on pride and stepping into the future with a courageous step, but more it's about a victim, oppressor mentality. And I have no room within my soul or any cell of my body to think that something is hindering me. I take full responsibility for where I am at this moment with you and all the mistakes I've made in my life. And they're only there to make me stronger, whereas these museum directors are hell-bent on the woke nonsense that speaks of, well, I didn't get there because I'm a victim and there's somebody who's an oppressor and there's colonialism, and so I just don't buy into that. It's a bunch of BS, honestly. And I can speak very honestly about that because as an artist, I could name 125 things that have stood in my way, and it never ends.
And here we are.
That is the very definition of being a human. You suffer and you got to grow and learn to deal. And so that's just like part of being a human being, suffering.
Yeah.
So embrace the suffering. It's part of the deal of the human condition, and get on with it.
Exactly. Well, this is, so you've tied this into the monument, which we'll go over in just a second, and I'd love for you to kind of walk me through. But part of this is our history is messy, Sabin. Nobody disagrees with that. Nobody disagrees.
Life is messy.
Of course, but...
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, please.
Were you there when your wife gave birth?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Was she smiling?
No. She was smiling a few minutes after the fact.
No, but during the pain and the ripping and the push out of the baby's skull.
Of course
that's
not.
Change. That's birth. That's growth.
Yeah.
That is human nature. That is history. It's just like so many like stupid stories being told this today that it's like, I'm going to be super honest. If you don't like me, fine. You're never going to like me anyway. If you got a vision, you're going to have enemies and you're going to have fans.
Yeah.
And I'm not changing my banner.
Yeah.
It's got lots of stars on it, and it's got lots of stripes.
Yes.
And the only reason that we can make a monument like that on the globe is because of that stars and stripes thing. What do they call it? The American flag?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the deal. And it's like, stop making excuses. Stop changing the flag. Get together under that and create unity. And I'm going to make a monument that speaks of that unity and the courage that speaks of all these people that came here.
That is the beauty of both the World War I and then this one as well, because there are hard things portrayed. There's a breaking off of an oppressive England. There's breaking the chains of slavery. There's giving more rights to women and minorities, and then there's pushing forward into the future, and then there's battles, and there's struggles between natives and settlers, and there's when I say messy, it's like, well, of course, but you portray it in a way that doesn't show victimhood.
No, it's not about that.
We're moving forward.
It's not about that. My wife kept telling me like 20 years ago, who's the guy, the great golfer?
Golfer?
Yeah, the most famous golfer. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods says, hit the ball in the hole. Don't think about hitting the ball around the hole. Hit the ball in the hole.
Yeah.
And that's what the monument's all about. It's look at the task and then, or put the basketball in the hoop.
Yes.
Don't think about like, okay, I'm going to hit it off the backboard. I'm going to get 3 points for that. That's not the game.
You know what's funny is in the Canadian Football League, if you miss a field goal, you still get 1 point. if it goes through the end zone.
It's just not part of the formula of humanity.
I want to tell you this, and then I want you to show me through the model that we have here. There was a member that's well known in Utah. He recently passed. His name was Jeffrey R. Holland. He was one of the apostles in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and at the time he's been sick for a long time. And close to the time of his passing, he met with a man named Clark C. Gilbert. He was recently called to the Quorum of the 12, and Elder Gilbert shares this amazing story that is just, this is exactly what you're saying, and I love this principle because he said, he was talking about in terms of BYU, Brigham Young University, Elder Holland and Elder Gilbert have a strong connection there. Jeffrey R. Holland was the president of that school. He went to that school, like he just has passion. And he said, I feel like things are starting to slip a little bit. And they were talking about that, and Elder Gilbert said, I made the point that well, we have the honor code, which says you have to maintain this standard of living, and moral code and all of that, and we have these other standards that are kind of like bumper lanes that help keep the ball in bounds. And he said, I couldn't even finish the sentence before Elder Holland cut me off and said, that is a whole lot different than bowling for a strike. And he said, we're not trying to just avoid disaster. We are trying to bowl a strike.
Yeah, always.
I mean,
Always.
I love that.
Aim for excellence.
Aim for excellence.
And it's truth. Excellence
Yes.
is truth. It's like, you should get a medal if you came in like 5th just because you participated. It's like, that's what our country's about, excellence. And it's like, I want to talk to you a little bit about the concept of freedom. Grand Liberty Arch is about freedom. And I guess I have lived my life with the consequences of choosing to be an artist, which is, I chose my freedom, but I chose my prison.
Yes.
Somebody else didn't dictate that prison upon me. I'm not good at that, because then I'm looking at it like, okay, you chose my path and my prison. That means I became the victim and you oppressed me. So I chose to be oppressed on my own terms because I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And I chose to be an artist, and being an artist is like, what is the thing you fight the most? It's like it's cash flow. So I chose to go down that path. I didn't know the consequences of my choice when I was 19, but I certainly do at 62.
Yeah.
And so now liberty and freedom are huge. I don't want to be contained. That's why I came out here too, because the expansiveness of the environment gives you a visceral sense of limitlessness. And isn't that what God wanted for us? Mm-hmm. When you go to New York, you walk on a cement sidewalk. Usually stinks, got a lot of dog poop all over, lots of trash, tons of cars, all double parked, a lot of people. And they're all dealing with stress because we're all stuck together like in a sardine can, all squished together. So there's not a lot of room to like actually expand. And you're in a canyon, and the buildings, even if they're like 8 stories or 5 stories, you don't see a lot of sky. Mm-hmm. You're in a narrow vision that takes you down. Doesn't take you up. So I started, when I was in New York, I started looking up at the sky a lot because I got used to being in the Alps and climbing and being in these outdoor spaces. And it's like always connect with the sky because you're connecting with the limitlessness. And that's ultimately, I didn't know I was connecting with God doing that. It was changing myself internally. It was like a coping mechanism. So freedom always has become like it's a big deal. It's like I chose an art path. It's like has nothing to do with what the modernists are saying. It's like completely divergent. It's like going back to Western civilization and history. And now I'm like, all right, you dug your grave, now deal. And I came up with this idea that I didn't know was like really close to my heart. So you want freedom, it takes force to go forward. You want freedom, you got to manifest a vision about where you want to end up. You want freedom, you got to act, agency. Who's it on? Me. Self-responsibility. That's why I came up with this monument. Lady Liberty appears in 7 of the 8 scenes. Lady Liberty is the symbol. The symbol. That's what monuments are. They're symbols of who we are. Lady Liberty is a symbol. It's an eternal symbol. She's in that monument, all over it. But she's not up on a pedestal. She's in the mix with all of us. Mm-hmm. So who are the heroes? Who's the hero's journey about here? It's not one person. It's not like a soldier's journey. It's all of us. It's all the citizens of the United States are the hero's journey. What does that say? Unity, community, we the people. Isn't that what our founding fathers spoke about? We the people, not we the state, the government, the oppressor, the government. This is about self-responsibility, agency, and manifestation. And that's what our history has always been about. Stepping into the void and not knowing when your foot will hit the ground. Doing that in a space that most people would like pooping their pants. And that's what, you got to look at the George Washington. I mean, that's like incredible what he did. It's like, did you know that the Minutemen did not have shoes? And that the British tracked them down in the snow because their feet would bleed and there were blood trails? So they had wraps on their feet. And when they hit out that winter at Valley Forge, that there was, you know, there's no like heater, there's like a fire. And these guys are like barely hanging on. It's incredible. And why shouldn't you have pride and look at the bright stuff that we were handed? The citizenship. You know, people come to this country, and when they do it legally and they hold that passport, you know what happens? They are touched. They value that citizenship. But when you sneak in, you don't value the citizenship in the same way because you just jump the gate. You just jump the turnstile to the subway stop. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. Mm-hmm. So this monument is all inclusive. And I take two sides. The front, with the flag being raised at the top, is the initiation, the birth of our flag and our country in that freedom. And the sides are what happened in the 1860s. With 1860s are dirty moments, tearing apart of the flag, Civil War, emancipation, the fight between natives and settlers. Those are dirty moments of our history. And yeah, there are people that died, and history is all about that. It's always like you have conquerors. From beginning to the end, it's always been that. There are no indigenous people. The indigenous people knocked out other indigenous people. It was always like that. It's like the same thing happening from day one. It's just the hierarchy and the way that human beings are built. And so then now, moving off those dirty moments of the 1860s, you come to westward expansion. And I thought, well, wow, you're now in Utah. What marks Utah as different than the rest? Somebody asked me yesterday as I spoke to a public gathering, why Utah? And I answered, like, why not Utah? Faith, family, and country? It's like perfect. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect place, but it's like perfect location for this story, this sentiment. The other side marks westward expansion passing through a portal in the 20th century. And at the very end, the last figure on the whole monument is a child holding a helmet. It's the future generations. It's a space race. It's a technology of where we go. And I feel like I've made a monument that everybody can see themselves within. It's not all about white folks. It's got Asians, it's got black, it has natives, it has settlers, it has Latinos. It is very powerful on the women's side, because that's my own experience. I have 2 daughters, and I have a wife, and I know how powerful they are.
Yeah.
I would not be here if it were not for Tracy.
Yeah.
So in Italy, guess who holds the power? It's the woman. The woman turns the man's head, the husband's head, in the direction he should go. He does the work. She's the one who comes up with the idea. And that's what this monument's about. Lady Liberty is the one that turns these historical, everyday men and women in the right direction.
Yeah. I think we should take a look.
If you want to.
I'd love to.
All right.
All right, Sabin, I'm excited to see this. Walk me through the panorama here.
I want to give you something.
Oh, well, thank you.
We'll show that to the camera. So that's clay. And I think I need to tell you guys this. What was clay? That's a synthetic modern clay, but originally clay was dug out of the riverbanks and it was mud.
Yeah.
And that mud got modeled, formed by human hands into figures and bronzes, which is like, that makes us all, as artists, creators, and this is very interesting because as a creator, being a human being, it's not just the arts, it's like God created us in his image, and so he didn't leave out the part about being a creator. So we have the ability to form and manifest ideas. And so the gift that God gave me was to be one stubborn bastard and make monuments. And so this monument was formed by that mud, clay, but the manifestation of the vision was the Grand Liberty Arch Monument. And it didn't start here in, this moment of 2026. This started 250 years ago. So we're going to start over here. This is the creation of our country, and it is led by George Washington here. And he carries a flag. George Washington and these three figures behind him. It's like an Iwo Jima grouping. On the other side is a Minuteman being led forward by Lady Liberty, and the red coat on the edge is holding the Minuteman back in chains, but she is winning this tug of war because she's showing him the freedom through liberty. What can be? And so this is the Revolutionary War, the fight. Now what happens on the other side of the arch? Over here is the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And there's Lady Liberty in the gang of five. There were five that wrote the Declaration of Independence. And on the far edge, after the Liberty Bell, is the bringing in of the flag, the creation of the flag. So this is how I started the project. Okay, you need to do some drawings, but then you need to physicalize the idea. So the clay is great because you can manifest, and it's malleable, it's plastic, you can cut and move, and this is the first step. And then we've evolved from it. The flag is being raised by these two women. These are very large figures up here. So these figures are all in the 8 to 9 foot scale, but as you move up, you're moving into like the 11 to 12 foot scale. And just to give you an idea, this is 20 feet up. So that's how large these females are. And they're raising the flag up to the highest point, which is Lady Liberty, who holds a torch. And she shows a man who is a citizen. That torch, the torch symbolizes freedom. And what happens when you are shown the light of freedom? It's like your vision of your reality grows so much. And the other figure below is on the ground, crouched, looking up. That is a subject. This is a citizen because they have seen what is possible. That's exactly what happened in our country. Colonizers were subjects of the Queen and the King. Came to this country, saw the possibility of liberty, became citizens and rose to the occasion. This man over here holds a shield because we must protect our freedoms. This is a very three-dimensional monument, so why don't we go from the east and the inception, let's move to the newfound freedom, which is 1860s. So as we come around to the other side, we're now looking at a whole different scenario. We have moved west. If you walk through the arch now, you have moved to the west. And this monument will be in the west. Salt Lake is the gateway of the west, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So on this side, you have a portal. And there are three men that are pulling that portal up. They're pulling a house up, the frame of a house. It's actually in the symbol of a crucifix as well. That's what was brought west. And after that, there's a child holding onto the skirts of Lady Liberty. This man holds a sledgehammer. He's an Asian, actually. The railroads were built by the Asians, the Chinese. And then on the other side is a woman holding a giant urn, and that urn is a symbol of agriculture and abundance. And the very front figure holds a book. Now that book can be the Bible, it can be the knowledge of Western civilization. It is a symbol of knowledge within books that were brought from Europe to the West. And we jump to the other side. Now all of a sudden you're moving to the 20th century. So the first grouping is an agricultural scene with a scythe and a woman and a man. It's a farm, an agricultural scene. That's how we started the 20th century. The next figure is a soldier. That soldier is from World War I. It's a very big moment for the United States because we moved away from being an agricultural nation to an industrial superpower. It's the beginning.
Yes.
And behind it is a soldier being helped up, a modern day soldier by a woman. And then the flag is held up. Now, the figure's too small to see. I mean, look at, that's a very little figure, but he has a blade for one leg. So there's this man, Jose, who came to me from Texas. He's the only figure in this whole monument that's not from Salt Lake. And he was a Marine in both the Afghanistan and Iraq war. 2 weeks before he was supposed to come home, he stepped on an IED and he blew off his leg, and he became an amputee. Now, I thought that was a very appropriate symbol for the United States. We have been wounded, yet we proceed forward with the courage and bravery to face the next thing, which is the future. That flag that he holds up is behind these two black men and a woman, which is civil liberties from the 50s and 60s. And the figure on your far left is Lady Liberty, but on her, she's looking at the soldier, and he's kind of leading. So our liberty is now on us. And the child pulling off her skirt, that's a child, future generations. What's in his hand is a space helmet. It's the next generation. So over in the very center, the symbolism is a giant wheel. It's very clear. The wheel is a symbol of rolling west, and again, led by Lady Liberty. The compositions changed a little bit in our next generation model, but the concept is the force, physical force, the work to build. And it's really about the builders. Like this man is building a house, whereas this woman, the woman is responsible for building families. She's the one who has children. And above this whole force, it's a very physical force. And the other thing is, like, in all these spots, Lady Liberty is pulling and pushing. She's that symbol, pulling forward. If we go to the sides, I'm going to show you the transition between the inception of freedom and the newer version of freedom, the redefining freedom after the Civil War, which is on your side. It's called the fight for the flag, where you have a Union and a Confederate soldier fighting, physically fighting for the ownership of the flag. And that's what happened. The country was being torn apart and being fought for. And then the scene to the left is that Union soldier holds, the other protagonist, which is Confederate soldier. But Confederate soldiers died, but they're brothers, and that's what happened to our country. So it's the death of many families because they were separated by this fight for the flag. Now the other side is similar in theme because it is this ugly moment of emancipation where a slaveholder holds in chains a slave, but he's winning the battle as he's being pulled forward by Lady Liberty. Again, the force, the symbol of freedom. I actually used a model who's an Iroquois with his son, and then this is a settler who is trying to fight past him. They're in a fight. It's a struggle to get through that portal. Notice the Indian is not passing through the portal. They never went through the portal. It was the end of a certain culture that got decimated in many ways. Yeah. And so then that's a way to show that our country has not been like this, all like sparkly, nice stuff. There's change in it, and change is brutal.
Yeah. But the overarching message is a theme of hope, the promise of what this country was destined to be. And I especially love how as we go through the entire story, how at the end, Lady Liberty is always the leading figure, pulling people from oppression, inspiring people to a higher cause over here. But then in the end, she's looking at us. Yeah. And she's saying, where do you want me to take you?
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like.
It's on us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, the thing is self-responsibility. It's on us as a nation to take care of that freedom and to play it forward.
Yeah.
And that's why I have the child. I mean, where does Elon Musk come from? Where did he gravitate towards? Where is he? United States.
Exactly.
SpaceX.
Yeah.
Tesla.
Yeah.
That's where else would that have happened? Nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, only here.
And space is they call it the final frontier, the last frontier, but it's symbolic of all the things that we still have yet to discover and yet to do.
You know what rings in my head? Oh, that quote from Star Trek, the original Star Trek, where no man has gone before.
Yes.
That's what this is.
In many different ways, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Remind me, Sabin, from end to end, what is the size? We're up about 36 feet here.
Yeah. This is total length 60 feet.
60 feet.
60 feet is actually a sacred geometry measurement because of how our eyes and mind are set up proportionally to the universe. 60 feet shows up in many different architectural settings, and it is very close to what the World War I Memorial is.
Wonderful.
But now we've gone next level, which is three-dimensional.
Three-dimensional, almost twice the figures.
3 times almost.
Crazy.
38 to 57.
That's
and the
insane.
scale has just doubled on the top.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be amazing. It's inspiring. It shares the message of truth, and there's a power to this model. It's going to be breathtaking when it's finally done.
Yeah, it would just spin around so you can see the proportion. This figure in the middle, I thought I should show that, is 6 feet.
Yes.
So that's how big you can see the human proportion to the scale of the monument.
I love that.
It's a modern day version of the Sistine Chapel. That's the vision.
Well, you're going to make Salt Lake the envy of the whole country.
That is the plan. But I didn't really talk about the symbolism of the arch, and I think we should get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
An arch has so many connotations historically. It's a sill. It's a paradigm that you cross and go into an arch. You go through an arch. It's a different vision of the future. And that's how this all started. It was like, let's make a symbol that is a definition, a redefining moment of who we are. A symbol. You go through the arch. It's 9 feet, 8 inches wide. And it's a vault that shoots your consciousness up to 20 feet. And then you walk through around 18 feet. So that's truly a chamber, but it's on human scale. Mm-hmm. So we may be putting an eternal flame in the very center of that, which I think would be fascinating, because then you would have this flickering flame at night inside the arch. And it sits in a plaza. I designed the plaza to have the concept of this being the epicenter of this wheel, and the wheel is like, what is a wheel? Symbol of eternal, forever. Mm-hmm. And then there are these spokes that run right directly into that central arch inside it. So that's the epicenter of freedom and liberty, and I'm making a statement that this is the actual physical epicenter of liberty in the United States, the Grand Liberty Arch Monument. And so that is up at the Utah State Capitol. And this is like, you know, the way that things used to be done. My references to the ground is what happened at the Campidoglio in Rome. Michelangelo placed who's in the middle of the piazza. It's like this man on a horse who is it? Constantine, right?
Constantine.
Constantine is seen as a saint because he brought Christianity to Rome. Mm-hmm. And the pattern is, again, going towards the center, all the lines going towards the center, ending up around the horse, and that's the center of the world, of the globe. And it's made in a globe pattern. So it's like, I'm not inventing this from scratch. I'm looking at the past and saying, playing it forward and make it relevant.
Yeah.
And the walls inside that arch should have words that mean something to our country and were created by our founding fathers. So 1 or 2 sentences from the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and that is something that is like, I would see school children and people walking through there. And I didn't talk about this, but this is a breathing, living monument. It's not supposed to be a piece of art that sits, it speaks of our grandiosity, and that's not about that. It's Caroline Charette, who runs American Preparatory Academy. It's got 5,500 students, 7 branches, and we talked about this, and she'll change her curriculum so there'll be a section in their program where all the ages, all the classrooms for middle school will have to compete for 3 to 5 minute segments and then win the competition, and then the kids would ultimately become the docents and go to the monument. And
the docent is the one that shows them around. It explains the symbolism.
Right.
They're a guide.
And that to me is like amazing, because like now all of a sudden we've incorporated future generations.
Yeah.
That monument will change how young minds are formed to continue the excellence of our country and run away from the nonsense of victimization and oppressor-victim mentality. It's like, there's no room for that, for excellence. And that doesn't work for people, because then you got a ton of excuses. So if you teach kids of this generation of like, hit the ball in the hole, like Tiger Woods said, then all of a sudden it's going to go into the future. So we're looking at, again, that string, unity, and it's like past, the history.
Yes.
Virtues of history. Those are things that children can easily identify with, like, and say, wow, George Washington was incredibly courageous at Valley Forge. Scratch my head. Well, maybe I need to do that when I got to deal with like this test I got to study for. Maybe I need to be incredibly courageous and go for it.
And even if they're not at that level, there's just a power and a passion and an energy that comes from patriotism and seeing the greatness of the history and how blessed of a land this is. I remember as a kid having those feelings, and they influenced a lot of what I did.
And look, you're successful.
For the better.
You have a purpose.
Yeah.
You're tied into a family and a community.
Yes.
You have a reason for being.
Yes.
You're not mooching off the system.
That's right.
But it's hard work.
Of course.
Yeah.
I would say in the sense it is hard work. It is simple but not easy. It's simple in the sense that the principles of being industrious and being successful are no real secrets at all. To say that it's easy to do is not true, but the nature of what we're trying to accomplish is simple. It's you and I are not rocket scientists, but you're building something. To bring this full circle, you are building the thing that inspired you when you were young, even when you couldn't quite put your finger on it. You are bringing that to the United States. So a kid born in the middle of Utah, the kid from my hometown in Wellsville, Utah, they don't have to go to Italy to experience the mastery and the majesty of the Medici tomb.
Yeah.
I hope they do. But they can just drive an hour south,
Yeah.
and they can stand on the Capitol grounds and experience what you have created here.
I want to diverge. You're going to think this is crazy.
Let's do it.
I just saw a mini documentary of Elvis. Elvis, the king of rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. I didn't know this. He would get up on stage and he gave so much of himself, and so much of his energy was about connecting with the audience. And he's an artist, and he worked really hard, like 3 shows a day for like years on end in Vegas. It's unheard of. Ultimately, he crashed and died because he had some, he took a lot of prescription drugs that got him, he didn't know any better. But it was like such energy. It's like he gave every ounce of himself to his audience. And he lifted up the spirit of his audience through, okay, it was entertainment, but ultimately, that's what I saw myself in him. I saw how much he gave and how much he brought to each of those performances and the connection he wanted with the audience and to uplift their spirit. And I saw also it wasn't about him, even though he's on stage and he was like the center of all that attention.
Yeah.
But it was like this, that's what's so great about America. It's like this go for it attitude. It's like this guy came from nowhere. And look at, he gave everything he had. He gave his life to it and changed the direction of history, didn't he?
Yeah,
changed the direction of music.
Of course.
That, I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole here, but the whole concept of rock and roll is very independent. It's very revolutionary. It's like, no, you can't tame me. It's like a bucking bronco that you cannot tame, that is an explosiveness. That is what the American spirit is. That's what this monument is. It's the American spirit. It's this Elvis phenomenon that I'm going to call. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, I've never seen that before. And that's what he was seen as scandalous for that very reason, because he wasn't staid and drawing within the lines.
Yeah.
It was like exploding beyond that stage, and that's like how I treated this monument. I don't know if you see it, but the figures are all exploding off the panels. Like I got squelched down on the monument in World War I, and I was like, I'm never letting that happen again. Mm-hmm. So those figures had to be a specific size because, get this, the World War I Memorial had to be the same size as the planters, 125 feet on the other side of the park. Why the hell can't you move the freaking planters? That's how stupid it was. It was just a way to squelch it.
Yeah.
So the figures here are uncontainable, and that's what the American spirit is. The figures above are 11 to 12 foot in scale, and the figures on the panel are around 8 foot to 9 foot in scale.
Yeah.
And they're breaking off the wall. Everything's breaking off. And larger than life, unstoppable force.
Yes.
That's USA.
That is. Can I ask you two more questions?
If you must.
The first is, with this being a different type of project, where it's saying that you're bringing it to the table, rather you're not coming to the table. Let me rephrase this clause. The first question would be this. This project is one that you have brought. It has been put into your mind, into your heart to bring. You found the support. You found the place that you would like to do this. Would it be fair to say that with this as being a unique project, you're now raising the money for it, you're raising the support, you're building the momentum. Is it fair to say that you need the community involvement in order for this to be pulled off?
Yeah.
Rather than just the support of a commission?
Thank you. Yeah. I'm holding several hats right now. Commission, organizer, creator, sculptor, community liaison. And we have a deadline. We have a very hard deadline. One of them is the 250th birthday celebration of our country, July 4th. And I've raised $1.5 million up to this point. Need to raise another $500,000 to get to July 4th, and so we can unveil it at the Capitol grounds with the governor. So that's Utah's gift to our nation. And then the other one is a little bit farther off in the future, but actually it is equally as pressing. We have the Olympics, Winter Olympic Games coming to Salt Lake City in 2034.
Yep.
Okay, it seems way off in the future, and it's not. 7 years, and I have 57 figures to sculpt. And if you're looking at an average on the wall of 750 hours per figure, and on the top 2,000 hours per figure, I already got a clock that's ticking. So we need to get everybody on board, and I need to be sculpting by the end of July, which means I need to fabricate the armatures to get those in my Utah Salt Lake City studio. So, and my crew of 3 plus me, 4 sculptors working, because we have to make each of those panels in about 9 to 10 months. And so that means bringing in now 2 million, which will cover our nut for approximately 6 to 7 months, but that'll give us a window, and we'll still be on time, and I'll always stay on budget no matter what. But on time is the kind of the mantra of my studio. We got to get the job done and hit the hard deadline at the other end. And can you imagine? This is a global moment for Salt Lake, and we are a rising city. This is a statement that goes beyond the walls of the state, and the Olympics are global.
Yeah.
Who comes to watch the Olympics? The whole world. That monument needs to be set. Granite and bronze need to be in place so the rest of the world can see the excellence of this area.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking if you're interested to please reach out. And
how do you want them to find you and learn more about the project?
well, you can email me if you want. It's sabin@sabinhoward.com. You can Google me. And that's my direct personal email. And you can write to me and I will meet with you. And we have a lot of ways that we can get this funded. It's right now, because after the first year, the locomotive will be moving. Now the locomotive is just starting to move. And we have a 501c3 that we run through. It's a National Monuments Foundation, and we actually have maquettes, models like this that we can sell. And I also have bronzes from the National World War I Memorial that we can sell. And it's really, this is a bootstraps project right now. It won't be that forever. It's too much involvement when the governor says, get this done, and I'm being put in front of Capital Preservation Board.
Yeah.
It's just this moment, and I think the urgency is more, I understand how long things take to make and how we have to start by the summer.
Yes.
Sculpting. That's really the issue. So thank you for asking that. And I do really welcome the community, because it's not about Sabin Howard's in the studio. I'm making this for, I moved here too because I wanted to be in community.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in service of my community. I wanted to make something for where I live. I thought that would be something that would be really important for the future of my life, the rest of my life,
I think the nation and of course the people of Utah are honored that you've come here. And
I'm more
building
honored
this
to
here.
be here. Grateful.
We accept you, Sabin, as one of
thank
our.
God.
Well, as we get closer and as time moves on, we'd love to help push the momentum forward, get the word out, and get people in the know of what's going on. It's going to take a village to raise this thing.
Yeah.
And it'll be phenomenal.
Yeah.
So Sabin, let me end with this question.
Please.
This is the question that I ask all of my interviewers, or all of my guests, and it's this: what's the kindest thing anyone's done for you?
Wow. Honestly, the kindest thing that anyone has done, it's not a person. It's how God has manifested his kindness in the people that I meet every day. That's it. It's the Spirit of God transmitted through the people that I have met here and the people that have come into my life, including my wife and my assistants and everybody that I have met. Every day I meet somebody else who has extended kindness towards me. And it's very healing for somebody who has passed through a true soldier's journey. It's not the South Bronx or East Harlem. It's a very different world here. So I thank you for that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast on Instagram at the handle Momentum Theory Pod, where I'll be announcing new episodes weekly, as well as sharing my top takeaways from every conversation. As always, I invite you to please share this episode with anyone you think could benefit from the conversation. So long for now, and thank you for tuning in.